He once said, "They tried to murder my boy." Those weren't the words of a promoter hyping up a fight. They came from a father who had lived through boxing's darkest tragedies and wasn't about to let his son be next. Chris Eubank Sr. stood in front of the world and begged them to cancel the fight between his son, Chris Eubank Jr., and Conor Benn. He didn't just disagree with the matchup, he feared it. Feared the weight cut. Feared the rehydration clause. Feared the outcome. And when you've seen someone's life slip away in the ring, fear becomes more than just a feeling. It becomes a mission. He brought up Michael Watson, the fight that changed his life and haunted him ever since. He made it clear, 157 pounds was too low, and the rehydration clause made it worse. He said if his son went through with it, he'd lose his life. That wasn't hyperbole, it was heartbreak. But then something changed. Eubank Sr., the same man who practically threw himself in front of a moving train to stop the fight, flipped his stance. And not quietly. Suddenly, he was backing his son with full force, declaring that not even PEDs could save Conor Benn. It was a complete 180. One minute he's warning the world that promoters are trying to kill his son, the next he's saying, even if Benn is juiced to the gills, he's getting smoked. What happened? Did he genuinely shift from fear to faith? Or did he realize the fight was unstoppable and decide the only option left was to believe? Either way, the emotional turnaround was jarring. And when Chris Eubank Sr. speaks, the boxing world listens, not because he's always right, but because he's lived through things that most of us can't even imagine. It wasn't just fear that clouded this fight, it was scandal. Benn didn't just come into this bout with power and a name. He brought baggage. Failed drug tests. Public denials. Accusations flying from every corner of the sport. And yet, somehow, amid all that chaos, Eubank Jr. stayed composed. No rants. No online meltdowns. Just a smirk, a couple of jabs, literal and verbal, and the same eerie calm that's now become his signature. His father, once terrified, now fed off that calm. He said, even on performance-enhancing substances, my son will end him. That's not a statement rooted in hope. That's a statement born from conviction. And when you've got that kind of backing from someone who's seen the worst this sport has to offer, it speaks volumes. Chris Eubank Jr., for all his brashness and flash, isn't playing a character. What you see is what you get. He's not trying to be liked. He's not begging for validation. He's walking into this fight with the kind of swagger that makes people uncomfortable because it's real. When he smashed that egg on the press table, a not-so-subtle reference to Benn's tainted eggs excuse for his failed test, it wasn't just a gimmick. It was strategy. Control the narrative. Remind the public. Get inside your opponent's head. It worked. And it cost him £100,000. But even then, he didn't flinch. He said it was worth it. Worth it to make a point. Worth it to keep the pressure on Benn. He even accepted a £1 million bet from promoter Eddie Hearn in public. No hesitation. Just confidence. That's not a man who's worried about the outcome. That's a man who's already seen it in his head. And still, while the spotlight shines on the ring, there's a different fight happening behind the scenes. Frank Warren, another titan of British boxing, is suing Eubank Jr. for slander. Over words, over accusations. But Jr. doesn't blink. Another lawsuit. Another fine. Another headline. It's just background noise. He's locked in, and his father knows it. That's why Sr. stopped worrying. Because he looked in his son's eyes and saw something different. Something focused. Something dangerous. He didn't see a man who needed protection. He saw a man who was about to explode. And when you reach that point, support replaces fear. That shift wasn't just personal, it was tactical. Sr. decided the best thing he could do was fuel the fire, not smother it. But it's not just about emotion, it's about weight. Literally. This fight is built on a number. 157. That was the catch weight agreed to in the original contract, with a brutal 10-pound rehydration clause tacked on. It's the kind of detail that sounds small until you realize what it does to a fighter's body. The difference between walking into the ring fully charged or completely drained. For Eubank Sr., it was a death sentence. But for Eubank Jr., it's just another hurdle. Even Tyson Fury weighed in, saying clearly, if it's at middleweight, it's Eubank's fight. And most of the sport quietly agrees. Benn is moving up again, fighting at 160 pounds, a division that Eubank calls home. And while Benn insists he'll carry his power with him, the numbers don't lie. His last few wins at 154? They went the distance. He hasn't been flattening opponents like he used to. And now he's adding even more weight. That's not confidence, it's a gamble. Eubank knows about gambles. His own career has been a lesson in risk and recalibration. That loss to Liam Smith in January 2023 wasn't just a knockdown, it was a wake-up call. A reminder that even the slickest fighters can get caught sleeping. He parted ways with Roy Jones Jr. after that, a move that signaled more than just a change in training. It showed growth, maturity, self-awareness. He realized he didn't need someone else's style, he needed his own clarity. Since then, he's been more focused, more dangerous, and less forgiving. That loss taught him that even the most confident fighters have blind spots. He won't make that mistake again. And on the other side, Benn is still playing catch-up. He's fighting not just for victory, but for redemption. For 2 years, his name has been tangled in scandal. He insists he's clean. Says he's been tested, cleared, and maybe he has. But the court of public opinion doesn't hand out easy wins. Benn has been swinging not just at opponents but at his own reputation. And in this fight, that weight might be heavier than anything on the scale. His father, Nigel Benn, built a legacy on fury and fire. A man who didn't just win, he demolished. And now Conor carries that expectation like an anchor. If he can't back it up, the backlash will be merciless. Meanwhile, Eubank is thriving in the chaos. He's not just embracing the role of the villain, he's loving it. During an interview with Ariel Helwani, he admitted that he used to hate being booed. Said it was painful, alienating. But now, he feeds on it. He said, "I love the haters. I love the doubters. I love getting booed into arenas." That's not just tough talk. That's transformation. He's not trying to win you over. He's not playing to the crowd. He's playing to himself. And that's the most dangerous version of a fighter, the one who has nothing left to prove to anyone except the man in the mirror. There's a kind of discomfort in this fight that can't be faked. Every press conference drips with tension. Every stare-down feels like a powder keg. And it's not just because of the fighters, it's because of the families. The history. The pain. This isn't just a rematch of two names. It's a continuation of a bloodline feud that started decades ago. And now the sons are carrying it forward, in front of the world, with everything on the line. Eubank Sr. even suggested Benn fight his nephew instead, Harlem Eubank. Said that would be a fairer fight. Not because Harlem is lesser, but because Jr. is already too far ahead. That wasn't just a jab, it was a statement. Benn, in his eyes, doesn't belong in this fight. And then came the egg. The now infamous moment when Eubank Jr. clattered an egg against Benn's head during a presser. It wasn't random. It wasn't childish. It was perfectly calculated. He distracted Benn by asking a question, reached down, and boom, egg to the head. It was petty. It was theatrical. But it worked. The moment went viral. Benn looked stunned. And the yoke that missed him said it all. Not enough to humiliate him, just enough to mark him. That's how Eubank operates. Not with brute force, but with psychological warfare. And it's working. This fight isn't about titles. It's not about belts or rankings. It's about something deeper. Identity. Legacy. Revenge. One man trying to reclaim what he lost. The other trying to prove he never lost it in the first place. And when the bell rings, only one of them will get to write the next chapter. For Benn, that chapter might be redemption, or it might be the end. For Eubank, it's about proving that calm isn't weakness, that the villain doesn't always lose, and that confidence built through fire is more dangerous than any punch thrown in anger. And yet, even with all this intensity, there's still one truth that cuts through it all. Chris Eubank Jr. knows who he is now. He's not searching. He's not asking for understanding. He's arrived. And that clarity, that unshakable sense of self, is what makes him so lethal. Benn, on the other hand, is still trying to become something. still trying to silence the noise, still trying to prove that he belongs. But when two men walk into the same fire, the one who knows he's fireproof always comes out on top. And if Ben's only hope is a puncher's chance, then he's not just fighting a man, he's fighting destiny. So who do you believe? The man who says, "I cannot lose," or the one still begging to be believed? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit that subscribe button if you want to see how this story ends. Because something tells me, this is only the beginning.